Welcome to the Jackie Scully Show. This is not your ordinary podcast. This is a space for heart-centered conversations, bold ideas, and transformative visions. I sit down with thought leaders and visionaries who are making waves in the world of heart, education, and consciousness. Together, we explore how we want to live, co-create, and thrive in 2025 and beyond. Every Friday, join me for inspirational and thought-provoking stories of everyday people creating extraordinary impact. These individuals are sparking waves of positive change, embodying the kind of impact we all aspire to create. This season, 3 powerful themes emerge: the heart of wholeness, exploring inner love, emotional balance, and our deep connection with awe; the future of education, rethinking learning through personalized pathways, collaborative growth, and community-driven transformation; and a new era of consciousness, expanding possibilities and how we live and thrive together. Come sit with me. Let's dream, build, and embody the world we wish to see. This is the Jackie Scully Show. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jackie Scully Show. And today we have Allison Jeffereys with us. I met Allison in the wonderful LinkedIn group called Super Freaks, and we both have shared about our spiritual journey. And just to give you a little bit about her background before she goes into more of her story, Allison is the author of the amazing best-selling book, A Woman's Guide to Surviving Divorce, a transformational life coach for women. She started her business, Allison Jeffereys Coaching, in 2019, fulfilling her heartfelt passion to help make the world a better place, one woman at a time. And that really speaks to my heart. When I was in college, I was in a sorority, and I would always be like, we are strong, independent, powerful women. And that was always like what I was known for in my messaging. So I definitely connect with the work that you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. I love everything about what you're doing with your podcast, because we're going into an era when, there's so many women out there saying, I thought there was going to be more. I know we're all saying it, but where do you get the answer? And that's what I work with, is finding that answer to what is that more. And, as women evolve into those powerful, amazing human beings we were born to be, it's an incredible shift that occurs, not only in that woman, but in everyone around her.
Yes. And I do think we're in an era where there's that more of the divine feminine, embracing the feminine side in all of us, because all humans have both feminine and masculine. Because I think that in the era we're coming out of, thank goodness, we haven't been able to embrace it as fully. And it's been kind of been in the background, and I think it's now coming into the forefront. So this is very timely, this conversation. So before we get into that work that you do, and just talking also about our spiritual approach, a little bit about your background, more than just in the intro I read there, about your story and leading into how you're here today.
Well, I'm just your average human being trying to figure it all out and move forward. I've lived a very blessed life. My father was a military officer, 6'5", crew cut, big guy. Had 2 older brothers. They were 6'3", something. 2 ex-husbands, 2 sons. Raised all of these people. Grew up with them, raised them. And at one point in my career, I had an opportunity to join a women's financial education platform. And I had done a lot of things in banking and in corporate relocation and in corporate work and managing teams and sales and all this stuff. And this just looked like something fun. And I thought, wouldn't this be great to learn more about men so I can do a better job of relating? And I took the job. And my job was to teach financial advisors, mostly old white men back then, in case it's in early 90s. And it's early 2000s. And teach them how to work with women, how we're wired, how we, express ourselves. And then to but to teach women that it's okay to engage in finances, because our natural abilities are perfect for being an investor. Even though we've been told girls can't do math our entire lives, the reality is, as an investor, our instincts are spot on. So I'm like thinking this is going to be golden. And what I found out in the course of that 3 years working there was that having grown up with the male influence in my life that I had, having fed into the messaging that we were being given, that we we were supposed to go to college if we were smart girls. We were not supposed to do the mommy route. We were supposed to go to college. We were supposed to make a name. We were supposed to fight for women. We were supposed to elevate women in the corporate world. And I did all of that. But there was something big missing from my life. Huge. Neither of my marriages had worked. I was not fulfilled by what I did in my job. I realized I had been living my life as two totally separate people. The one in the business suit with the hair and the makeup and going into the business meetings and all buttoned up and tight. And the one that I was at home, where I drove my pickup truck, no makeup, hair in a ponytail, jeans and a t-shirt. And the day I walked into the local convenience store to pay for my gas, and she looks at me and says, "Do you have a sister that lives in town?" And I said, "No, why?" And she goes, "Oh, because there's a woman that I see looks just like you, drives a pickup truck, and she's always in here." And I'm like, that is me. And that was when the real journey began, integrating both sides of me. The part that I had been taught, the masculine, and the part that I wanted that would give me the more that I was looking for in my life, would give me the type of relationships that I wanted in my life, both with friends and hopefully, no crystal ball at the time, one of my own person. And fortunately for me, as a journaling experience, I had started writing my book while I was traveling, and all the women on the airplanes were like, "What are you writing? Let me tell you my story." So it didn't turn out to be my story. It's that compilation of all these women's stories, because there's that common thread, that common experience that we as women go through when our relationships end. And so as I finished up the book, or I couldn't quite finish it, because you have to live the happy ending. You have to know how to write that ending that you want to put on it. So I put it away for 8 years and woke up one morning and said, I have done the work on me, because that's where the work needs to be, me. Mm-hmm. I have dug myself back out of the hole that I was in. I found out who I am as a woman. I found out it's okay to be a woman and receive. And, I think I can write the ending to my book. And it was laugh, live, and love for the last 3 chapters. Just be your authentic self, learn how to laugh again, you learn how to live again, learn how to love again, and everything will happen for you. And a month later, I met my husband. So I finished the book, put it away again, and met my husband. And I was ready to be in a relationship. And the one deal breaker, because I had my whole list of, what I needed in a relationship and what was going to make me whole. And in it was, I wanted someone that had faith, because in my earlier relationships, there'd been no faith. And the first night we had dinner, he came over and I cooked and we had the whole meal. And, it was obviously there, whatever that it is, it was there. And he looked at me at the end of the meal and he said, "Well, I like everything I see, but I have one deal breaker. Have you been saved?" And that is when you know that God is working for you.
Absolutely.
And that when you step back, let go of all the reins that we carry. And I'm a horse girl, so I carry a lot of reins, trying to control everything. When you let go of those and just let God do his thing, it is amazing how everything transforms. So while my early life, didn't sound like such a blessed story, let me tell you, everything I went through, everything I experienced helped me become the person I am today, and allows me to help other women become the women they were born to be.
Yeah. That's
because
beautiful.
It's just easy to be non-judgmental when you realize if there was a mistake to be made, you probably made it. And if you didn't, you had wanted to at some point or another. So you take that whole judgment thing out. And it's all about just, what do you want? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And what do you contribute? Because as women, we all want to grow up and make a difference.
Yeah. I love the story of you accepting all of your journey, because it's very easy for us to, especially going through the healing process and doing the inner work, to still reject that story from the past. But we don't want to reject it because it is part of how we got to that point. Like,
Mhm.
I have to love that story up to maybe it was rock bottom, maybe it was just the dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. I think many of us go through many versions of that, but you have to realize that that story got you to that point to get to this like kind of awakening, to come maybe back home to yourself and your faith. I resonate with that. I was just reading something this morning about like you have to almost get lost to find God again. And you do, like, you gotta like completely get lost in your world or in what's not working or just in the unknown to then be in that surrender and be ready to surrender. Because it's very hard. I think it's very hard for women to surrender, but it is very hard, especially a woman who's like, I've been so used to taking care of everything. I've been so used to being in control, knowing what my life looked like, and like having this image of success. It's a very hard place to surrender from that. So you get to that point of you don't have a choice. And I think that's when God comes to you and says, like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for you to come back in. And that's been my soul journey for like the last 2 years. And I've been kind of in like the thick of it in this season. But yeah, and I think I resonate too, even though I wasn't in the corporate world and teaching world kind of feels like it's more of that feminine role, but it is still a role of control and being
Mhm.
in charge and
Mhm.
having a title and having expectations
Mhm.
and constantly being an ego.
Mhm.
So even if it's not, corporate, it's still that identity piece of this is who I am. And you have to like relinquish that and see that side that you have that you've been ignoring because that truly is who you are. And we are all of these stories and all of these identities. But when we're only sitting in one side and not the other, yeah, then you can feel broken. You can feel like you're not whole. And then you try to fill it in other ways and it just never works. So that's awesome that you had this book you're writing and sharing like these women's stories. And then you finish it when you got to this place of now I feel whole and I'm really on this other side of this healing journey I'm on.
It's, and I love it because when women read the book, I tell them right up front, every chapter is independent. You can read any chapter because, wherever you pick up the story, you may be needing to hire an attorney or you may be needing to fix certain things. But the last three, I consider it to be the dessert. And somewhere along the way, I'd heard it's a Japanese custom to eat dessert first. And
Oh
so I put
yeah.
in there, hey guys, if you're struggling that badly, skip the whole first part of the book, read the ending.
Hmm.
Because in coaching, what I've learned is until my client gets a glimpse of what the ending can look like, the work doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The work, they take a hold of the work when they start seeing that light at the end of the tunnel of where they can go, what they can do, who they can be. Then it all starts making sense. So you have to start with that ending in mind. Everything starts with the ending in mind. And it's how do you want to feel when you're done with this? What do you want your life to look like? What do you want to
Hmm.
think when you first wake up in the morning? What do you want to be grateful for when you go to bed at night? And then all the pieces start laying out. And I love what you just said. And I'm gonna pick on you for a second, but if I ever do a TED Talk, the title is going to be "It Has Always Been Your Choice."
Hmm.
Because that was probably the most profound thing I learned throughout this journey. We hate being at rock bottom because we're at rock bottom. Oh no, but that's when you get to make the choice to soar. So when you hit that rock bottom, there's nothing left to lose. I love that place. When you
Yeah.
learn to embrace that place, that this is my starting point for everything from here on up. And if you go into it with the knowledge that one of the three major gifts God gives us is free will,
Hmm.
free will to choose what's right for us. And, there's a lot of, are you saved or are you going, are you one of the chosen because of your DNA and where you come from and your family origins and da, 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 da. Or is it because you chose? And everything I've learned in every religion I've looked at is that it has to come from in here. It has to be a personal choice to believe. It has to be a personal choice to embrace. It has to be a personal choice to choose the path you're on. And then let go of the expectations. Because we try to control every niggling little detail between here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when it doesn't happen exactly the way we want it to here, we lose the beauty in the whole rest of that journey. Because dang it, my third step did not look like I wanted it to.
Yes.
And let me tell you, if I had gotten back together with all the old boyfriends that I, in my mind, planned the resurrection of, I would never be where I am today.
Yeah.
It's in the things that didn't happen sometimes that the beauty really comes in.
Yeah. I see that. When the things don't happen, we look at it maybe from another perspective of that's the gifts that come to us.
And hindsight being 2020, that's when you realize, thank goodness I didn't get back with that loser.
Yes.
Come on. And it's, what is the number one cause of divorce? Let me ask you, what do you hear when you ask somebody what's the number one cause of divorce? What do people say?
I would say finances, but also I think communication and truth, like with that.
And that is what a lot of people say. And then there's also always the adultery thing that ruins it. But the truth of it is, having worked with lots of women and talked with God knows how many women who had been divorced on my airplane flights that year, the real cause of divorce is very simple. We married the wrong person. We married the wrong person. It's that simple. They're not a bad person. I'm not a bad person. So, I just called some of my exes losers. Okay, fine. But to be non-judgmental, if we go at it from that perspective of we just married the wrong person, it doesn't mean I'm flawed or they're flawed. It means I didn't know better. I didn't know. And what is a mistake? What is a mistake? My definition of a mistake is doing something without some knowledge that you will have at a later point in time. Okay. So it didn't work out the way you wanted because you didn't have all the knowledge you have. How do you get that knowledge? You make the freaking mistake.
Yeah.
So mistakes are blessings.
Yeah, they are.
And you go with that, and you have to be able to realize it's okay. We're human. We're meant to make mistakes. And we learn from them. And so if I married someone for the wrong reasons, and which made them the wrong person, how do you fix that and never make that mistake again? You learn yourself. You learn who you are. You learn what you need. You go through what I call the Build a Man project, where you literally sit down and dig apart what are the things you need in that significant other. That if you're a woman, quite frankly, it's not your job to find him. It's not your job to go on the dating sites. It's not your job to go out and search out this guy. It's your job to be your absolute best, wonderful self and be visible where he can find you. Doing the things that you love to do. And he will find you. And I said that for years. My friends were like, oh, you're too picky. And yeah, And I'm like, no. I don't think you understand. This is my life. And I'm going to live it the way I choose. And I am not going to be with someone just to have someone. I've done that. It didn't work out for me. Now I'm going to be with someone, not because they are my happiness, but they add to my happiness, which means the step I have to take first is I have to get happy. I have to be happy. I have to love my life. I have to be proud of who I am and what I do. And someone out there is going to be looking for a woman with her stuff together.
That's totally fine.
Okay. And happy.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to find me if I'm still looking for that something more. They're going to find me when I am in that place. And that's exactly what happens. And it's like you're walking down a street and you turn a corner and boom, everything changes. So that first night at dinner, we both knew we were adults. We had had the conversation. If there's no spark, if there's no flame, neither of us need another friend. We are looking for a life partner if you're the right
Yeah.
person. And if not, we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was there. And everything changed like overnight. And that's when you've done the work. That's when you're ready. And that's when you're strong enough and healthy enough to know you deserve everything you want out of life. And that means you're going to have to find a pretty good man, or actually, a pretty good man is going to have to find you. And then you're going to have to take your time to make sure that all the aspects of love are there before you make that commitment.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, with what we see on TV and in magazines and all of this, we've got relationships all backwards.
We do. We totally do.
Totally backwards. Okay, there's a spark, so now I have to prove there's a reason for that spark. No, there's a spark. That means you're attracted. God put something together here.
Yeah.
Now it's on you to make sure this person's free will has not turned them into something or someone that you can't live with.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't going to be your right match.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever heard this theory that, how many people are there in any adult relationship, in any marriage?
Mm.
Friend of mine which I was writing my book, she came to me with the theory there were 6 people in every relationship. Who you are and who he is. Who he thinks you are and who you think he is. And then the really crazy one, who you think he wants you to be and who you think he wants you to be, who he thinks you want him to be. Okay. And we get stuck in that third couple. I call it the pretzel couple.
The pretzel couple.
And I'm like, this is a really great theory, but you haven't fixed the problem.
Yeah.
So unless we can come up with the fix to the problem, it doesn't do any good. And you go to sleep one night thinking about something, you wake up the next morning and there you got the answer. There is a fourth couple that comes into every marriage. There are 8 people in every adult relationship. And the last 2 are the important 2. Who does he need you to be? And who do you need him to be? And for any of you out there that are
So
married or
true.
in serious relationships, have you ever asked that question
That is
of
so
yourself
true.
or of him?
And that is an important question. And it's not selfish for either member to ask that because we all have needs. And when you enter into a union, even if you've gone through like challenging times and you're maybe growing apart, growing together, there's a lot of waves that happen. But you have to say, like, this is what I need from you and tell me what you need from me. And it has to then, obviously, again, your free will, be reasonable. If the needs don't match, then you're just going to be like, well, then I don't know if this is going to work anymore. So obviously, you ask that, you hear what they
Mm-hmm.
are. And I think it's also taking into consideration that you're both going to change many times. Like, and those needs will change through
Mm-hmm.
your development into your different ages, through crisis in the world, things going on, ups and downs. Those change. Like nothing stays completely stagnant. But I think you want to go back to like what you said is like those core, like, who are you? How do you live your life? What do you, want and desire? And like, is there a fit there? Is there a complement? It doesn't have to be the same,
Mm-hmm.
but like there's a complement there. And I was going back to like the image of like female and male of everything, even
Mm-hmm.
just in like parts. So female is receiving, right? Male
Mm-hmm.
is giving. And it doesn't mean that we don't both give and receive, but we have come into I think a generation of women since probably like the 90s of women have to chase, women have to go after things, go after men. There's a new dating app where it's all about women chasing the men and thinking they're giving them the power. I'm like, that's actually not natural. I'm not saying that it doesn't work for some people, but I have not found it working.
Mm-mm.
When I changed my approach before I met my husband to dating, I went back to the receiving and again, living in my authenticity and truth and what I deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still on like a dating app, but it wasn't the one where I was chasing men. And I went for the man who approached me on there and gave me like that attention to say, like, hey, I noticed you. This is natural. Look at any animal species, right? That's how it works.
Go back to hunter-gatherer societies,
Yeah.
anthropology. Men were providers and protectors. Women were the gatherers. Okay, so for men, it's provide and protect, because they would hunt and they would provide food and protect the family. And the woman would nurture and nourish by gathering the food,
Yeah.
by making the food, by creating the home. Like you said, just that creative energy versus the concrete energy of
Yeah.
providing and protecting. And it's about making those choices. I use a story with my clients to kind of explain how this works. When we're in a relationship and we're not being true to ourselves, we have this bad habit of accommodating other people, right? Okay, because we're givers, we're not receivers. We have a hard time receiving. So we're giver, and we give and we give and we give. And every time, we want to go out to dinner, we want to go do something. If I acquiesce to what he wants to do, eventually I'm going to resent that.
Yes.
Because it's always him. Or in the past, I guess I should say, I would always end up resenting that.
Yeah.
What I've learned to do now is to look at it and say, okay, so we have a Saturday afternoon. He does so much for me. I'm a horse girl, so he's constantly out fixing fences, feeding horses, doing something for my silly horses. And he says, I want to go to a gun show. No, sorry. I do have my own and I do know how to shoot it, but going to a gun show for me personally would be like watching paint dry. So what do? Do I say, no, I don't want to go because, you would enjoy it, but I would be bored, tearless, no. I say, yes, I'll go. I make the choice to go because of all that he does for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want him to go someplace that he can be happy. And you know what? I have an absolute blast watching him light up, looking at the conversations he gets into, just stepping back and being a fly on the wall and enjoying watching him have fun.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't come out resentful that I spent a Saturday afternoon with him at a gun show. I come out grateful that this is the man that loves me.
Yeah.
And it's because I've spent a day watching him be happy, talking to other people, interacting with other people, seeing what a kind person he is, seeing who he is. I come out, all the happier.
And you get to embrace his joy. You're still in joy. You're in someone else's joy. I think that perspective is so important. Instead of like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't like it. Instead of, I get to see someone in their joy that I love.
When I go out and I want to go to a horse competition or whatever, and he helps me get all ready and he comes and I do, and he congratulates me or whatever it is I'm working on, and he congratulates me for it. I know how that feels. My office chair, he supports me in what I do. I didn't have a comfortable chair. What did I get for Christmas? Go pick out a comfy chair for work. Now the X chairs might have been a little out of my league, but I got the comfiest chair that I could sit in because I believe you got to sit in them first before But, he bought me my chair. He makes sure I'm comfortable when I'm working. He does so much for me that, does it really do anything for him? Yes, because he gets to see me be happy. And so I've learned how it's that give and take. It's you fill your own cup by filling someone else's cup.
Yes.
And when you make that choice, that conscious choice, unlike the times he says, hey, you want to go out for dinner? Yeah, okay, great. Where you want to go? Okay, let's go for Mexican. Okay, fine. We come home in an argument.
Right.
Versus, it may not be my favorite food, but it's his. And we eat mine all the time. So we're going to go. And there is something there I can eat and enjoy and have a good time. And when you change the wiring up here that says, I'm not going to accommodate if I'm going to be pissy about it.
Yeah.
But if I do choose to accommodate, then it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And we do have fun.
That's awesome. And I think when women do the inner work and they take care of themselves and they have that self-love and they fill up their cup with whatever they need to do for self-care, the things that give them joy, you can be in that perspective. You can enjoy doing things with your partner, your spouse, or whoever, and just be, giving them that time. Because I have done that so much. My husband and I are like, we have very different interests, and then we have things that are very much we like to enjoy
Mhm.
together. But I fill myself up so much with the things that I enjoy and my self-care that I am in my self-love that I'm like, hey, you want to go do something that's for you? Like, I want to see you happy and enjoy that because same thing. He works really hard. He does a ton of things around the home. He shows his love for what we have created together by taking a
Mhm.
really good care of this home and the things that makes him proud. So it's like, it's all a give and take. And healthy relationships is about that. Healthy relationships is a give and take and seeing each other in their joy and knowing when
Mhm.
you need to be there and not always like, well, that's not what I want to do. I mean, we can't go around like we're bratty teenagers and think that we're going to have successful marriages.
No, well, and you think about it, marriage in historic, the couple were partners.
Yeah.
It's just after the Industrial Revolution. It's just after
Mm,
and where we are now that, it's a contract. And if
mm,
you don't live up to your end of the contract, I'm going to null and void this contract and it's going to cost you. That's what marriage has become. But the difference is 100 years ago, 150 years ago, maybe before
mhm.
the Industrial Revolution, you know, everyone was a faith-based culture, faith-based society. And we were, our foundation was love thy neighbor. Well,
Mhm.
if you're married, that includes your spouse. And it's about taking care of your spouse and your spouse you were a unit.
Yes.
And, if you got in a covered wagon and went out west and you and your spouse weren't working together very well, you weren't going to make it.
Yeah.
I mean, just being honest, you were
Yeah.
not going to make it. You were
Yeah.
going to, no, y'all weren't getting there. But now, then Darwin comes along and they talk about evolution
Yeah.
and we got supplanted. The idea of how we live is survival of the fittest.
Mhm.
And when you go into a marriage thinking this is survival of the fittest, and if this thing fails, it's going to be on him,
Mm.
and I can get a divorce and I can move on and I can try again. What have you just done to yourself? Because our brains are wired to find what we tell ourselves.
Mhm.
So if I tell myself I'm not worthy and I don't deserve, and that I shouldn't have to do what he wants, I'm going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Versus if I switch it around and say, no, wait a minute, this is my life partner here. This is the person I want to wipe my chin when I'm old and decrepit and can't do it myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make choices that foster that
Yeah.
kind of relationship, because that's what marriage is. It's that give and take. And yeah, there's sometimes where you love him more than he loves you. And sometimes he loves you more than you love him. And sometimes you're angry at each other, and it happens. But when you go into the fight knowing this is just a fight, and the cool part about it is when it's over, we get to make up.
Yeah.
And making up in a good relationship, it's fun.
Yeah. Yes. And like just growing and learning together and that unconditional love, like that is what it comes back to, like being rooted in that. I love this. I know we're out of time soon. So just any final messages with what we're sharing about relationships, empowering women, the coaching work that you do. And I'm going to plug all your information in the show notes so women can find you and come see you for coaching, because I think this is phenomenal to really transform their lives.
Okay. Well, I just would encourage any woman out there that if you're looking at life saying there's got to be more, and you've been struggling and can't find it, this is what I help women with. I believe that if you're going to change your life, it takes an intensive effort. So I
Yes.
do a 6-month coaching program with 2 calls a week, which everybody goes, you can do that. And I'm like, I can. Because if I'm helping someone heal their heart, because what I do is I help women make peace with their past,
Mm.
fall in love with the woman they were born to be, and live a life she loves. That's a lot of pretty intensive work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of digging. So it is a very intensive time to do the work. And I don't want to lose the integrity of what we're working on by going too long. So
Yeah.
2 calls a week, get it done, get your life back on track and get moving forward. That's what I offer. And I would just, encourage you, if you even think you might want to try this, give me a call. we'll talk a couple times, make sure we're a good fit. And then if we are, we can figure out how we can work together.
Well, thank you so much, Allison. I know coming on this show today, I knew we were going to talk about women and relationships, but there was like this intimate connection, really. And again, talking about, I think, just union and like where we have been in the past, where we've kind of gone on the off the rails. And I think where we want to come back to in this new era is really thinking about these relationships and making them healthy and whole and loving ourselves first, because you have to do that. So thank you so much for this wonderful conversation today.
Thank you so much for your podcast. It makes a difference.